Welcome to Matters Financial and Geopolitical from a Frontier. I hope the week's gone well. It's suddenly whizzed by, hasn't it? My home thoughts return to one of my favourite poets, Rabindranath Tagore. Incredible sort of poet, seer, and an Indian, I think, a titan really. Says a number of quotes. The butterfly counts not months but moments, and has time enough. And that made me think. Because I do feel time has flown by all of a sudden, half a century later practically. I seem to have loved you in numberless forms, numberless times, in life after life, in age after age, forever. Pretty irresistible, I would have thought. Reach high, for stars lie hidden in you. Dream deep, for every dream precedes the goal. And finally, don't limit a child to your own learning, for she was born in another time. Frankly, that's how I feel about my Hannah frequently. On that note, I'll put up her photo on her birthday. The true life is not reducible to words spoken or written, not by anyone ever. Don DeLillo. Political reflections. This headline caught my attention. We broke the ISIL, Islamic State of Iraq and the Levant, siege of Mount Sinjar, said Barack Obama. And I'll put up a file photo of a Yazidi man and his donkey walking along a road on Mount Sinjar. So that's one development that clearly the US military feel that that siege is largely over. In a speech yesterday, Iraq's two-term leader Maliki said that he accepted the candidacy of Haider al-Abadi, and once he lost the support of Tehran, I think he was a goner. But I think in many ways he was a lightning rod, and he was in a situation which was very difficult for him to break out of. I'll put up a photograph of Prime Minister Maliki when he visited President Barack Obama. Interesting piece on Bloomberg how the Islamic State is said to challenge Al-Qaeda for leadership. The US intelligence community thinks the Islamic State has an incentive to conduct a major terrorist strike against US or European targets, in part to further assert itself as the true leader of radical Islam, the official said. There's evidence that the group is establishing cells beyond Iraq and Syria, they said. There's a competition for jihadi leadership, in which the Islamic State disparages Al-Qaeda chief Ayman al-Zawahiri and his lieutenants for hiding in the mountains as it tries to seize the global jihadi crown. Retired US Army Colonel Detrick Harvey. IS began as Al-Qaeda in Iraq, was suppressed by the US forces and local Sunni tribesmen during the so-called surge in 2006 and 2007, then transformed itself into the Islamic State of Syria and the Levant, and finally into its current form, the Islamic State. The Obama administration also may have underestimated the Islamic State's capabilities in Iraq and Syria, with the president famously comparing it to a junior varsity team, in part because of the president's reluctance to put his toe, foot, and then leg back into Iraq, said Harvey. And I think, the circumspection is because of a number of reasons. One, that IS is clearly very well heeled and therefore well funded, and by one of the US's key allies in that region, Saudi Arabia, no doubt. And that raises the complexity around how the president deals with it. And I think what happened here is what the president's defending is oil interests in Kurdistan, essentially. Its leader, known by his nom de guerre, Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, frequently on the move between hiding places in Iraq and Syria, is in control, though he doesn't micromanage the group's actions. Officials said that the Islamic State is essentially self-funding. This is important. Able to draw on hundreds of millions of dollars through taxes, money looted from banks, sales of oil from areas it now controls. I think that's a key issue. extortion and other measures, the intelligence officials said. That means one key element of the strategy used against al-Qaeda, curbing the money flow from the Persian Gulf and other outside sources, won't be effective, they said. The US intelligence community had estimated that the Islamic State had about 10,000 fighters in Syria and Iraq before it captured Mosul. The estimate is now being revised upward. I suppose you're a winning ticket. Lots of people rally to the flag. The officials said the Islamic State's ranks are bolstered by thousands of foreign fighters, including some from Europe and the US, whom officials said may return home with orders or independent plans to hit targets. That threat is highlighted by recent arrests in Europe, including about 40 men detained in Kosovo who had reportedly been fighting for the Islamic State. Islamic State militants are better equipped, they're better manned, they're better resourced, they're better fighters, they're better trained than the Al-Qaeda in Iraq that our forces faced. It is a global expansionist, global jihadist organization. He said it is swollen with foreign fighters and suicide bombers who will go wherever the organization tells them to go. And that could very easily be capitals in the region, it could be capitals in Europe, and God forbid it could be here. And I mentioned this previously, the intelligence community doesn't anticipate a move against Baghdad soon because the Iraqi capital is defended by security forces and Shiite militias. It's an unlikely target since the vast majority of the city's population are Shiites and would fight the Sunni insurgent group, and that was the point I'd made previously. But I return to the point that the complexity for the US in this matter is that ISIS is extremely well funded and well heeled and clearly supported by US allies in the region. I've been mesmerized by that YouTube video that Johan put me onto, which is issued by ISIS called The End of Sykes-Picot. And if you haven't watched it yet, because I've been banging on about it all week, go to 14 minutes and 13 seconds and listen to that. It's sort of Peter Sellers-like, surreal. And one of the fellows says, speaking directly to camera, and it's actually very interesting, the language, the fact that it's narrated in English, the sort of cultural references it's drawing. But he turns to camera and he says, have you bought enough diapers for your soldiers? And starts laughing. It's very surreal. Do have a look at it. Ibrahim Awad Ibrahim Ali al-Badri al-Samurai, formerly known as Dr. Ibrahim and Abu Duwa, most commonly known by the nom de guerre Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi. And he's apparently famously said, I'll see you guys in New York, when he was released from Camp Booker. Staff at the outbreak sites see evidence that the numbers of reported cases and deaths vastly underestimate the magnitude of the Ebola outbreak. And this is, I concluded by saying, this undercount is a given. Statistics are always hard, Africa even harder. You can imagine that this will be undercounted in a very big way. I'll put up a photograph of a micrograph of human liver tissue infected with the Ebola virus. And then I went back to global research, because there is some sort of speculative thinking that this Ebola virus is probably somehow part of chemical and bio-warfare research. And Global Research has an article referring to, they say, here is the opening quote from the document. In early 1952, the CIA effected an agreement with the Army Chemical Corporation for the performance of certain research and development work by the Army Chemical Corporation at the laboratory facilities of Special Operations Division, Army Biological Laboratories, Frederick, Maryland. And here is a key quote about a research project. Adaptation and testing of a non-discernible microbiologically device for clandestine inoculation with BCCW, biowarfare, chemical warfare agents, to determine compatibility with various materials to assure that the microbiome inoculator cannot be identified structurally or easily detected upon a detailed autopsy. Interesting. Agence France Presse has tweeted a photograph of economic lockdown in West Africa. I'll upload that. Robert Guest tweeted crowds tear-gassed in Missouri. A protester kindly lends our reporter a surgical mask, and I think they brought that under control by wresting control from the local police. I did a short interview about Kenya-US economic relations post the Obama summit, if you'd care to have a look at that link. And then I like this photograph. RT was tweeting about Russian food ban takes huge bite out of Greek fruit growing industry. But the photograph he tweeted was of peaches. It made me very, very hungry. The best peaches I ever had, as I'm sure I've told you, was in Turkey in a place called Bursa, which is not far from Istanbul, and it's where they ski. And oh my word, it was just extraordinary. There were huge peaches. I had all this juice all over my face, and I've never enjoyed anything so much, except for the shoke, which I keep missing because the fruit's only available in Nairobi for about a week or 10 days. I was very upset to have missed it last time round. Euro 133.68, dollar index 81.59, Japanese yen 102.54. They're looking at downshifting their full year GDP in Japan. Swiss franc 0.9064, the pound 166.90. I think looks like a little bit of a trading buy here. Aussie 0.9326, India rupee 60.885, South Korean won 1021.20, Real 226.65. Egyptian pound 714.76, South African rand 1054.39. Dollar index, I'll put up a 3-month chart. I think the dollar's set to push on, and corrections will now be shallow. I saw an interesting report on Bloomberg, the average cost of options, betting on a decline in Brazil's real, Indonesia's rupiah, South Africa's rand, Turkey's lira, and India's rupee has jumped to the highest level in almost 5 months. So people worried about a dollar move, buying protection on these currencies. Each month that goes by, you're coming closer to the point when you're going to be tightening. You're picking up pennies in front of the steamroller. You've got to be very careful indeed. What a great quote. In the last 6 months, the real has appreciated 5.4% and is the second best major currency in the world, trailing just the Colombian's peso's 7.2% rally. The rand's rallied 3%. That's the sixth best performer, with the rupee, the lira, the rupiah coming in 7th, 9th, and tied for 10th. Euro dollar, see, I've forgotten to put that phone up. Oh, Euro dollar 133.68. Notwithstanding some very weak data that came out of Europe, the currency actually held its own, and interestingly, German yield dropped to 0.998%, less than 1%. France yields fell as well, 1.392%, record low. Spanish bond yields reached record lows as well, 2.42%. Gold, I'm going to put up a 1-year chart that's continued to grind higher, last at 1312.225. Crude oil has had a sharp fall, $94.25. I'll put up a 1-month chart. It's been in retreat over this last month. Narendra Modi, the Prime Minister of India, tweeted a photograph of himself speaking at the Red Fort. I'll put that up. Moody's is concerned Ebola threatens growth as costs squeeze budgets. The world's worst outbreak of Ebola may inflict broad economic damage on the West African countries of Guinea, Liberia, and Sierra Leone. You bet it will. Commercial and transport disruptions probably last for at least the next month. Increased health expenditure will put pressure on budgets, jeopardizing economic growth. Ebola threatens to have significant economic and fiscal ramifications for a number of sovereigns in the region. Outbreak risks have a direct financial effect on government budgets. It's very non-linear, isn't it? And I'm not sure we've seen the big spike you get in these sorts of epidemics. And I think it's undercounted, and I think, we really don't have the infrastructure in Africa. 3 people have died so far in Nigeria. South African all shares up 10.4137% this year. Dollar versus rand, that's ticked a bit better, 1054.39. Egyptian pound, 714.76. Egyptian EGX30 rallied another 106%. It's up now 38.39575% this year Africa's best index, and really the markets love CC. A phenomenal rally we've seen here, which actually started Q4. Nigerian all share up 1.0186% this year. It's been on a bit of a losing ticket of late. Ghana Stock Exchange, that's been on the decline. It's up now only 4.4289% this year. ExxonMobil, the US's largest oil company, ended exploration plans with Total in South Sudan in a sign of faltering investor confidence. I like two photographs I found on The Guardian. Bill Blings now runs a bar at Lacquer Beach after returning from France, where he'd lived for many years. Photograph of him on Instagram on The Guardian. And the Guimbi Theatre in Burkina Faso was once an urban legend, but now lies in ruins. I like that photograph from Guardian Witness. His Excellency the President has asked Major General Gichangi to remain in his role until a replacement is nominated. A statement read on national television by President Kenyatta's spokesman said Michael Gichangi, a fighter jet pilot who rose to the rank of Major General in the Armed Forces, had resigned on personal grounds. His Excellency the President has asked Major General Gichangi to remain in his role until a replacement is nominated. Was appointed to lead the National Intelligence Service in 2006 for a 5-year term, which was renewed in 2011. Kenyan security bosses have been severely criticized in the wake of the Westgate attack for failing to stop the attackers from the Al-Shabaab group. The criticism grew after a mid-June attack in the coastal town of Peketoni, which at least 50 people were killed, after Kenyatta said intelligence on the impending attack was available but it had not been acted on. SCP Su said Kenyatta had also reshuffled his principal secretaries, the number 2 bureaucrats and ministries, and most notable being the transfer of Mutia Iringo from the Interior Ministry to the Defense Ministry. Appointed new ambassadors, including Jerry Gittai, who was then at the Treasury in 2011 when President Museveni was my guest and he was the minister attached to the President. Gittai is a key ally of Kenyatta, who has been beaten in a contest for the governorship of a rural county in last year's elections. I was once wandering around Chandarana. There's a Chandarana supermarket in Thaiga, and I turned a corner, and there he was, Major General Gichangi, and he lifted one eyebrow as if he had been waiting for exactly me at exactly that spot. It was a very interesting place, and it moved. He had this sort of way of moving around where you wouldn't notice him. Standard Chartered Kenya reported first half profit after tax grew 34.1769%. Loan book to customers only grew 11.2611%, and given their big marketing effort, they're obviously now in a more expansive, aggressive mode, so we should see even more traction. Lots of detail. First half earnings per share up 34.154%. I thought there were strong results on reasonably neutral balance sheet expansion, total assets plus 7%. Very attractive on a forward basis, on a trading P of 10.605, and now you're on a forward basis in the single digits by a margin. And as I mentioned, however, in a board presentation I made to them, I think the share needs to be split because the optics of such a high share price is capping the price now. Kenya reported first half earnings, profit after tax up 4.577%. It trades on the lowest trailing P at the stock exchange, 4.126 of any insurance company. But interesting, what I noticed was first half claims and policyholder benefits were up 37.5988%, so up substantially. First half profit after tax up 6.19%, earnings per share up 4.0935%. The revenues were up 22.094%, but as I said, this was significantly outpaced by claims, up 37.5988%, but on a PE basis, very cheap share. CIC Insurance credibly reported first half profit after tax up 296.98%, but there's a strange second half skew in their earnings. Whilst profit before tax surged 67.24%, even after that surge, first half earnings per share represented only 8.9522% of full year EPS. But good results. Delta Airlines may become the first carrier to fly directly to Kenya from the US. Kenya Airways plans to, this is the Cabinet Secretary, who was pretty bullish about that. Now, moving to Kenya Airways, where there's been an almighty hullabaloo about these West African destinations that Kenya Airways has. Kenya Airways flies 44 times a week to 10 West African cities, saying that they're going to continue servicing all these routes. Strong opposition to abandoning the West African routes. Airline earned about 48.6 billion shillings from African operations, 54% of its annual revenue, excluding Kenya, flies to 36 destinations in Africa. Refusal to stop flying to West Africa is also driven by the fact that its main rival, Ethiopia and even Rwanda, have braved the Ebola crisis to continue servicing the region. I wonder how dynamic the pricing has been around those destinations. I did that interview with Mahmoud Jan Mohammed about the tourism industry, about Serena, about how the situation is as we find it. Do have a look at it. It's very, very much the eminence grise of the tourism market here. An interview with Charles Ireland on the event of the full year results, but lots of insight into challenges, particularly around Senator that they had with the government. Other issues, but really strong results, frankly. And he said at the earnings release, we've been around for 92 years, and indeed they have. And then have a look at my interview with Joshua, because that gives you another perspective on the banking side as well. Kenya shilling has been soft of late, 88.1 last. Key areas, this 88.25 level. We've got to keep an eye on it again. I, for one, am surprised, but bear in mind, much lower oil price is going to be helpful. NSE 20 up 1.8879% this year, has closed above the key 5,000 level since August the 5th. As long as we can stay above there, that's good. Diamond Trust reported a 48% jump in the net earnings from its subsidiaries in Uganda, Tanzania and Burundi. And Nassim attributed a strong performance from the SME lending across the region, which is interesting. Once again, thank you so much for stopping by. I'm deeply grateful for it. I wish you a wonderful weekend and a restful one as well. Thanks again for stopping by.